to detail. There we go. All right. Welcome. We are getting pretty far along with this, with the wither. He looks like he could be put into focus a little better. There we go. So what have we been up to? Okay, so for those of you who may have missed a couple streams, or maybe you missed the last one, or maybe you've been here the whole time, it's a good time for a recap. We seeded the wither on a Minecraft block. I think we went with that instead of the broken terrain idea. Just seemed to work better. Tried to do it up, make it look like a block of grass within the same sort of level of quote-unquote realism and detail as the rest of the piece. We then started smoothing a little bit, tried to clean up the head a bit. I think Muffins over here looks a lot better. Definitely a little more defined, a little better shape. Then we worked on Steve's face a bit, gave him a little more like tendon and gore coming off the mouth, shaved the jaws down. Steve specifically had this sort of like big, sort of too wide of a jaw going on him. So cleaned that up a little bit, added a little more like tendon and viscera sort of coming off of him, and then started working on Bob. So Bob's a bit of a tough character because he's a bit tiny and he's at a low angle, so I kind of have to really jack the thing up to be able to work on the low piece. So I think that's what we'll do tonight, is we'll continue working on the lower part of the face of Bob, clean that up a bit, and then get back into like really trying to get a smoother, smoothed out rib cage and cleaned up, because it's still a little chunky, and it just, we need to keep smoothing, and then maybe after that we can consider maybe adding some more finer veining if that looks like it'll work. Maybe take the needle and do some scratching in to add some like cracks and indents instead of just adding, and then probably then start polishing with rubbing alcohol. So I'm guessing that will probably be what we do Friday. Yeah, cool. So that's kind of the catch up. So unless there's any questions on that, we might as well just go ahead and get started. I feel like we've scared off Frozen August by opping her. She seemed to be not a fan of the opping process, so have to be sure to de-op her, which I would have thought was a good thing, but oh well. I guess some people have commitment issues. Okay, so I need to angle him up just a little bit so I can see underneath him. And then we've been using the spool tool. Where'd it go? I don't see it on here. Oh yeah, been using the loop tool to kind of do some more removal and cleaning, and then also using the rounded point to kind of do a little more of the shaping and smoothing. Yeah, sorry guys, I think if the stream's like freezing up for you a little bit at first, I think maybe it just needs to buffer. I don't know if you can pause it and just let it run for buffer out a bit, but I don't know. Hey, Pancake Mix. Yeah, this is a polymer clay called Sculpt. This stuff is specifically super Sculpt, and the firm version of that even more specifically. Its stuff won't dry. It'll actually stay pretty pliable until you put it in an oven, which is what's kind of nice, because I just let it sit out on my desk while between sessions, and then sit down and pick it up and do it again, and it seems to work pretty well. I do have water clay somewhere. That stuff might be fun to work with too sometimes, just good old messy clay. Although I may get in a little bit of trouble for doing that in the house. The other thing we just have to be careful of is overworking the piece and having the head fall off again, because the armature doesn't go all the way into the heads like it should, and that was certainly a problem. So I feel like there's too much on the lower part. Just try to remove some of the material. This may look terrible. A little better. Yeah, it's a little bit of a, I don't want to say reinterpretation of it, but it's just, you know, using anatomy references, get something a little more close to what it may actually look like. As much as a flying three-headed skeleton demon would look. Oh, I gotta be careful. Yanking and tugging on that head. Ugh. Just looks terrible. Yeah, you got it, Pancake. It is, yeah, quote unquote, realistic. So part of the way that we did that is actually, as you can kind of see it back here, is actually just printing out some reference photos so that when we're putting the shapes of it together, that we actually have something real to look at, which is very helpful. I actually think it's one of the sort of the real easy things that you can do to help improve your art. It's just have reference. Should be a Nice, Sir Waffles. Pancake and waffles. Head just is waiting to come off. I'm just trying to add the more detail to the skull. So now we're kind of using these rounded tools less for smashing clay down and more for smoothing them. Help work away the tool marks. And the crack lines too, for where it's pulling apart. Yeah, the air can, we'll try that in a little bit, because it's right now it's pretty cool to the touch coming fresh into the project. It's just more for me screwing with it. So first I have to kind of actually let it go the other way a little bit, soften it, so that I can mash it back together, and then then it'd be good to harden it after that point. Oh, there's crack forming there too. Interesting. Sometimes just need to be more patient with working the clay, which I'm terrible with. I want it done now. And we could fire it and then actually try to use tools to machine and work the clay and scratch it. It's just, you know, once you harden it, it's the effort to make changes to it becomes much more difficult, or at least removing material or spreading it around. You know, you're kind of locked into that shape. If we're just adding material, then it's not that big of a deal, and actually we'll harden it and then do another pass where we add more to it just to fill in spots that may be a problem for casting. But we're still a ways off from that. Still need to do a lot more finishing. Since we have a couple new folks joining us. Oh, did I ever change the There we go. Never changed the title. I gotta be better about that. The more effort we put into the sculpture, the plan is to make a mold of it. So getting it right now means that when we make a copy of it, all the copies will be right. So it's better to just take the time, put the effort into it, and then do all the little things that we need to do to improve it. And we'll make some copies of it and then give away the first copy to a follower. I think Bob's going to be the most difficult. He's requires very delicate work. Oh well, it was a good lesson for me on doing armatures. I actually learned quite a bit. I think when we go for the Ender Dragon, that I'm going to armature out the entire body, and then also clay, use hardening clay, or epoxy putty, to do the like chest and head area to really help block those out. Just overall, I think I'm going to spend more time doing the armature, have it nailed down to a board a little better, and then possibly have it, like one of the things people do is you have the wires coming out and attached to other guide wires and support wires, and then you just trim and work over those pieces once you get down to the hands like that. It's just sort of a way to keep it really stable, but that may not be necessary for the design. I almost wonder with the firing approach if it would have made more sense, and it's too late now, but to leave things like jaws off or teeth within the jaws and do like detail work that afterwards and build up in multi-fireable layers. So pancake mix, I think what I want to do, it's still up in the air, but I want to do an Ender Dragon sitting on a block like this, but like, I don't know if you've seen the Cthulhu idols where you have the big sort of demon, winged, corpulent octopus demon sitting on a block, and then there's all the, you know, runes around it. But do that, but do it with an Ender Dragon. Because I think I can actually get some good reference off of the papercraft files and use that for sizing. Because when I do, when we do sculpts like this, one of the things we want to do is actually have, like you can see I have calipers. So we can like take a picture and we'd be like, oh, you know, let's, you know, measure this and then measure it against that so we can get really accurate size. I think I can do that with the papercraft file for the Ender Dragon. Does that make sense? I know I don't always explain things very clearly. I tend to ramble, so if I don't, then I apologize and just let me know and I'll try and rephrase it. But also, so some of the neat things about that idea is, one, its interpretation will appeal to multiple audiences, right? Because if you like Cthulhu, then it's a nod to that mythos, and if you like Minecraft, it's a nod to that. And then also, Minecraft has, you know, for the enchanting book, they have runes that are in that, which is actually symbols from I think Commander Keen, an old DOS game. But they have symbols in it, so you could do like symbols around the outside, and that would look cool too. So, hey RBP, welcome. Yeah, Claptrap's an interesting idea. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I don't entirely know how to execute him, so I'm not confident. And so I'm just trying to think, like, what would be good for him? That idea of having him in that Cthulhu spot, like, I guess really what it came down to is I wanted to do something Cthulhu related. And maybe I was just trying to force that idea onto it. I think he's got to be due for a better idea. I mean, maybe just making him as is. Maybe not trying to do anything other than just having him be a little maquette. I mean, that's not a bad idea. I hear good things about the prequel too, so maybe it is a good fit. I'm being bad, I'm wandering. I need to like pick a location and then work through that location. So we'll start at the bottom. So our goal is to smooth this piece out, get rid of sort of the rough burrs, get rid of any sort of stuff that really registers and reads as tool marks. So just to get it smoothed down. And then we'll, once we get to that point, then we can work on finishing. So this is just kind of us getting into detail. So I'll start down here at the base. Is it out of focus? So it looks much better, doesn't it? But yeah, we'll start down here, and I'll kind of use this as an opportunity to make the shapes make a little more sense. Pancake Mix, have a good one. Thanks for stopping in, man. Hope you dropped a follow if you're not already, and then we'll see you on the next one, I hope. Yeah, I love Borderlands. I really do. It's one of the games that I really played a lot, and actually the first Borderlands, I would argue that I think I was the sort of the Borderlands player at the office out of everybody else. That was kind of my claim to fame. Borderlands 2 I enjoyed. I don't feel like I got to it as quickly as the others. I bought it right away and played it right away, but it didn't feel different to me. I mean, I beat it. I beat it through a few times, got the first DLC, played through Tiny Tina's. Did I beat Torx? I don't remember if I actually beat Torx. I think I did. I didn't get into a lot of the Seraphim stuff and really go crazy with it, but I think I got through most of the stories. I didn't get through Hammerlocks. Yeah. It's interesting because I know there's a lot of people that I know that got a bit put off to Borderlands, just being like, it's too grindy, and I always thought that was kind of interesting because I thought the writing in it was really, really, really good, and the second one was even, more so. I think the writing in the second Borderlands was even better. I mean, Butt Stallion, come on, that's highbrow art or humor there. But actually, seriously though, the Tiny Tina DLC, without trying to give too many spoilers, although I think you've had enough time to finish that, was a beautiful story of closure and grief and mourning. It was such a subtle but serious message that they were going for with it. I really liked how they did that. And then Torx, that Torx was, you could easily expect that character to be, just over the top and annoying, but I think I really found him endearing. And then separately, how they integrated him into the Tiny Tina DLC, and they really made him a character there. It was all really well done. And Handsome Jack as a villain is, he was really good, because he was charismatic, but ticked you off too. And one of the things was I was a Mordecai player in the first Borderlands, and so the whole Bloodwing reveal and quest line was rough. So yeah, I'm really curious to try Borderlands 2. I've been honestly, a lot of my game time has been going to this. It's been going to streaming and Minecraft, because Minecraft. Let's see if I can get around a little more to the side I'm working on. I also have to admit, I love, I don't know if you know Hey Ash, What You Playin', that series. It's a bit on one of the older YouTube stuff. Ash is who voiced Tiny Tina, and her brother is the one who went on to be a writer at 2K, and he's basically the writer for Borderlands and stuff, and his stuff's pretty awesome. So his style is pretty much that Borderlands style, which I love. And I love that it's that kind of, irreverent humor. Just feels well suited. Just adding some texture to these pieces. anywhere there's like a little bit of an indent or something. We're just trying to accentuate it so that it just has more character. I don't think I need to have it tilted at the moment. Let me try and clean up the space just a wee bit. I don't really need the brushes right now. I don't really need this. I don't really need texture. I'm not doing much scratching at the moment. We do need our ball tips. Maybe this we're getting rid of. Burrs out. And we don't need rakes at the moment. Needles will stash. There we go. Okay. Just trying to get the space a little more cleaned up. So we're just kind of continue on working this spine. This is kind of the big weekend for Halloween parties. Is anybody going to do anything special? Anybody playing any good games? While we slowly meander our way through the process. Personally I'm helping build 2 bumblebee costumes that are for a couple of horses. So I just got my shop up and running, minimally. Still a lot I need to do to get it up 100%. But I've been using that space to pretty much make like day sheets, you know, like what you put over a horse to keep them warm. Doing that with yellow fabric, black stripes. Gotta fabricate a couple bumblebee wings, and then hooba doober, little bobbly things. So it's for this Saturday, so it's been a lot of work. Almost like I was up pretty late doing it last night. Taking a little break from it tonight. Need sleep. Still feel like there needs to be more something down here in this connection. I don't know what though. Maybe something that we do after we fire it, and then just do something additive. It'll be easier to work with, I guess. Maybe a little low. Thank you, Inglorious. I appreciate it. It's I'm happy with how it's turned out. It's been a fun project. It's been a really good learning experience, of course, too. Just as far as like, you know, using tools and and things to do and not do. I don't even know what shape I'm making. I'm literally just kind of working with the clay of what's there. You know, skulls on the base are not a bad idea. You know, piles of skulls or something. I only would be concerned if it would almost look like a part of him. You know? Like if you would think like, oh, he's got skull toes. But it's not a bad idea. I'm trying to think what else? What are options? Pile of something. Maybe a different type and shape of skull. Creeper, chicken, pig, cow, Minecraft pick. Ooh, what about a broken Minecraft sword? Like just split and like shattered or something on the ground in front of him. I'm trying to think how I would make that look apropos with to what we're doing. Bones would be good. I mean, we are on a dirt block, so I could try and do, and that's a little bit different, but little flowers. Maybe we go the other way. We go ironic, we go opposite, sort of a juxtaposition. Little red tulips and dandelions with some sprigs of grass. I mean, you do summon him in the overworld, right? He's not a part of the nether. He's not a part of the end. You know, it's funny, I think it may seem silly, like, thinking about your art projects to that extent and detail. Trying to have it make sense. But I think it makes a better piece if you do. I think we talked about this when we were doing the Necronomicon sculpt, is that you really want to minimize the amount of leaps of faith that you're making. And we're already taking one by saying Wither exists, right? Wither exists in real life. So what would it look like in real life? That's why we're going with more anatomical approaches, right? So then he's appearing in a real life world block. Oh, arrows are an interesting idea. It's a very interesting idea. I'm trying to think how it would be good to do arrows. So if we were to cast this, right? Like how would we want arrows to be? Because arrows would be tiny. It would actually be cool to put them all over the body if we could. But like I said, how do we do that as a casting and finish piece? So it almost would be a finishing step, right? Like we make little arrows of some way, shape, or form, cast them separately, and then after we mold the piece, we then add them. But I like that idea. I have to think about it from a logistics standpoint for doing with that. Let's get a little scooping in the spinal disc. Maybe it's a bad way to go. I'm working closer. Let me readjust focus. There you go. Yeah, it's not a bad idea. Like, have it maybe affecting the block more specifically. These are all good ideas. Good brainstorming session. You know, another way we could go is something for scale, because withers are supposed to be really big, right? So if you made like a little sheep looking up at them. But then maybe the block isn't appropriate at that point. Side or textured, you know, that's what I mean. I don't know. Don't know. There's a lot of options. A lot of options. What about Steve? Oh, Minecraft Steve. Sorry, I thought you meant Wither Steve. Yeah, possibly. Although we may paint ourselves into a corner by trying to be too anatomically correct. But yeah, a tiny little figure might be interesting. At least for showing scale. I don't know. It's almost like if we went that route, I would have tried to plan it better and then do like a little house, do like a little fencing. That'd be really cool. It's like you have that tiny, tiny little bit. But I feel like maybe we have, might have not gone that set up, but that may still be a possibility. I'm just trying to think like if we can do it in a way that actually will look interesting and be moldable, which I think it could be. Not a bad idea. Thanks, KevDog. Thank you for the follow, sir. That's all I want. Just want your follows. Actually, I want your views. Because here's the plan. We get millions of people watching at any given time, and then I'm going to roll an ad, and then I can retire. Off of just one ad. And then I'll write a book on how I retired off of one Twitch ad. Because then I'll make millions of dollars from that. And then I'll go on talk shows about retiring off of one Twitch ad. It'll be kind of like that old story of like making stone soup, and the way the guy tricked everybody was by adding ingredients to the stone soup, and then all of a sudden it was a good soup. It'll be like that. It'll be like how I retired off of one Twitch ad, but then it'll really be all the other money from the book sales and the talk shows and Oprah visits. And Oprah will be like, yeah, what's Twitch? Because, you know, she doesn't strike me as somebody who keeps up on her on her dream hack. You know, it's actually really funny that a lot of that sort of stuff, you know, that people go on to TV shows and talk about, and the self-helps and all that stuff, like, it's all the same recycled stuff. I read a few books in succession. One of them was How to Win Friends and Influence Others by Dale Carnegie. It's one of the original quote-unquote self-help books. It's just one of the really like mainstream ones I'd heard about, and I was curious. There was Getting Things Done. I think that's David Allen, I want to say. Oh, I just heard a knock. What's knocking? What are you doing? Sorry, it wasn't a knock. It was a cat jumping on something. It freaked me out. Where was I? Oh yeah, so Getting Things Done. I also read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I also read The Art of Happiness by the Dalai Lama, and then I read the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin, and they all had very similar themes about how to like, work with, interact with, and successfully achieve things with other people. And out of all these books that were like, I think hundreds of years, or not hundreds of years, but like within 100 years apart, although Benjamin Franklin was 1800, so yeah, there's some of them up to 100 to 200 years apart. And then also Daniel Pink, Drive 2.0, which is about motivation and working with the information economy, whatever. So something really recent. And they all said the same thing, which is just it's just various ways, shapes, and forms to like not be a dick to people, and that if you want to work with somebody, you should understand them, and if you want to resolve a problem, you should try and work with the person as if you're friends, and it's so all these different permutations, ways, shapes, and forms. And when people go on and they're talking about sort of this kind of stuff and secret to life and all that, I think people are just saying the same darn thing over and over and over and over and over again. So if I did something like, hey, how I retired off of one Twitch ad, it's like basically how I did a gimmick and then sold talking to people about the gimmick, and I wouldn't be the first person to have done that. Hey guys. So, I mean, the point is not to get into like, too much about what the books themselves, but it's like, it's sort of, diets. Diets are another really good example where it's like, oh, you do this keto, or oh, you do this paleo, or oh, you do this Atkins. And at the heart of every single one of those types of diets, you're eating less calories, and they recommend you exercise. And that's it. You could eat Snicker bars and lose weight. You just have to eat less than your calories. And all of the other dimensions about like how it affects your body and how, it's this sort of magical efficiency, it's all BS or all minimal effects. It does not change the fact that you have to eat less than you burn. And yet diet fads keep coming out and keep sort of reinterpreting the same idea. And if you'll look, even like diet pills, like when you're like, oh, here's Hydroxycut or something like that, it'll say take with conjunction and exercise 3 times a week and drink plenty of water. It's like, yeah. I don't know if you remember those old Encyclopedia Brown books, but it was like the sort of the case of or was it Hardy Boys? I forget. One of those like, detective mystery books where Night Cam, where they was he had like this magic pill and like this ritual where if he put the pill in this water and poured it on the ground and then like used an axe head to beat the ground with, it would make worms come up out of the ground, and then kids would use that to catch them and then for fishing. And but he's like, oh, this magic pill, and it's like, Encyclopedia Brown finds out at the end where it's like, no, it's nothing magic about the pill. It's like when you wet the ground, worms tend to come up, And a lot of people use, use what's effectively the same thing in common knowledge to try and sell something new by fancying it up a bit, Oh, thanks for the follow, JD Killer. Just noticed that. Appreciate it. Anyway, so long story short, if we get a million, if I get $1 million from this, I promise I'll stream every day. And I'd give away a lot more of this stuff. give one of these away to everybody. At least the original followers. Let's see, how many followers are we up to? We're up to 268. So there you go. There's my promise. If this stuff makes me $1 million, I'll send the first like 300 followers custom art stuff. That's like $1 billion value. So what do I do other than occasional streaming? I work for Machinima, actually. So I have a day job, kind of a 9 to 5 kind of thing, although it's actually more of like a 10 to 7:30, and I've been doing that for a little over 5 years. I started with Machinima back before ETC and Realm and before Respawn and all that stuff, and actually helped get a lot of that stuff up and going. And now I work with as the head of the production group, helping everybody kind of do a little bit of everything and keep the production rolling. But yeah, so that's what I do. So it's my day job. So I don't get to edit, and I don't get to really do Photoshop and that kind of stuff as much anymore. So this is kind of a creative outlet. One of the things I've been kind of doing lately too is I've been offering editing tutorials to YouTubers and Twitch streamers, and just working with a lot of those partners and helping them through on getting started with just basic editing stuff. So MC Andromeda, what happened to Bruce's forehead? Well, it's probably worth watching AFK to find out, but let's just say it was an unsuccessful front flip on a trampoline. I don't know if they're going to leave it in the edit, but I think that's one of the ones that is delivering. And editing is in video editing? Yeah, video editing. When I first started at Machinima, I mean, we have people who do a little more dedicated work now, but back when I first started, everybody kind of did a little bit of everything. I would write, edit, produce, and even voice some of the work in town that we did. So it was kind of fun. Some of the stuff I look back on, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I made that crap. But it was kind of experimental. It didn't really. It was before there really was the whole channel partner kind of stuff. People weren't like really successfully making money on YouTube on their own. They all had to do it through major networks like Machinima, and so it was different time. It was like 5 years ago. Yeah, he's fine. If he's wearing band-aids now, I think he's just doing it to get attention. But he certainly was a bit salty over that scenario. And I guess, if you're making money with your beautiful face, you might not want to rub it against a trampoline. Hey, pooped? Yeah, that's cool, man. That's the way to go. I'm self-taught as well, and that was enough to get me working at a gig like there. Although we used to use Final Cut. Now we're more Adobe Premiere. Hey, Sir Philippe. So you can kind of see. You see how as we're smoothing it, it's kind of getting a little more of like a plasticky look. It's less dull, and it's actually getting a little bit of a shine. That's good. That's what we want. It means that the finish is getting better. Yeah, I really like the Adobe suite. And people there's detractors to it for sure. It's but I like that it bundles together well. And everything kind of works interconnectedly. It didn't really have that much of functionality when I was using it at the time, but now since I've come back to it, it's really neat how well it plays nicely with itself. Photoshop nesting into After Effects, into Illustrator, they all work pretty cross-functionally. I've been playing with Lightroom a little bit after my trip. It's really neat. I need to do it. Got just too much going on, Although it's probably because I need to be better about managing and organizing my time, which is slightly ironic considering that that's my job at work for other people. But when you come home, you don't want to do your work. So that's a bit of a problem. If you have an organizational job at work, then that means when you come home, you want to be disorganized. Freeware, I don't think Adobe's ever going to go freeware. Right now they've moved over to a subscription-based service. And I actually think that's a really strong way to go. So if you have a .edu, you can pick up Premiere alone for like $10 a month, and then you can pick up the whole Creative Suite for $20 a month. And I think that's really worth it. There is freeware NLEs out there, or nonlinear editors. If you're curious about that, you want to check out Lightworks. That's an editor that is actually open source and free. Pretty up the face a little bit. The other thing too is we can finish this with sanding if we really wanted to, but that just would be such a pain in the butt. So many little details. You'd have to hit like a Dremel. But in some way, I kind of like how raw it is. But we've already done so much to kind of smooth it. But like I said, the more that it has that really nice plasticky look to it, that's good. That means we're doing things right. This means we're working out the fingerprints, we're working out sort of the raw clay. The wither. So it'll be interesting. It'll certainly be interesting once we recast it. I would like, somebody made a suggestion of doing, casting it in metal, so I'll probably do a cold cast of it as well, polish it up so it'll look like a pewter. That may actually be the way to go with it in general. It'll look really cool. Otherwise, everything else looks pretty plasticky. Maybe I'll add some thickener to it to weight it down a bit more. Maybe I'll just buy a big block of lead and then cram it in there while it's setting up. I'm just worried about this. It's a little thin here, so if this is plastic, if that'll snap, or if it actually is thick enough there. If you figure that about there, it's about, quarter inch, that if that was like a wooden dowel, that would be enough to sustain just fine. But we'll have to add sprues for this casting and pouring so that it vents properly. Debating if I should move over to the polishing. See if we can start getting some polishing going. I've actually been wondering how best to approach it, you know? Let's try. Oh. I mean, a Q-tip to polish it is one thing, but I could also be dipping like a tool with a little bit of rubbing alcohol and seeing if that's helpful. This may not be. I haven't seen anybody really do that though. Yeah, next project I think we are going to go with the Ender Dragon, unless I can come up with a claptrap idea. Ender Dragon on a Minecraft block like this. Maybe we'll do it as a stone block or an end stone, a la Cthulhu idol. Maybe we'll try polishing with Q-tip, see how that does for a bit. Really what I've noticed is that this kind of helps just get the fingerprints off. Doesn't seem to be as like drastically affecting the clay as I would expect, but it certainly needs dry time afterwards. I think I was saying before that, and sometimes it's just the fact that the oil does interact with the Sculpey a bit, but it also kind of works as a lubricant while you're polishing, because it's not abrasive. I mean, it's rubbing alcohol, but it just lets you. It's almost like wet sanding, you know. I should probably follow the same pattern as before, which is pick a start point and then just slowly work our way through. And we'll do that. Start at the bottom. Yeah. Still crooked. Yeah. Is that a little better? I mean, we're not going to be working on the dirt block that much, I don't think, so we can kind of crop it a bit. So hopefully this will just help remove some of those tool marks that are still there, and we'll get a good sort of flatter surface with it. Because it is making a slip, it may be covering it a bit, losing the detail. Great. I love when you guys let me know what I can do to make it better. Might need more Q-tips. This is where it gets like, I could see this getting, you know, more tedious to watch when you're not doing any big broad stroke kind of things. You're doing this really fine tuning kind of work that you're not going to see a real tangible impact with right away. You know, because when we start whacking away on that's bad choice of words, phrasing, when you start hacking at a face, you're knocking away big chunks of clay, and you'll see that pretty quickly. I would think that the smell of fear smells a little bit like soiled pants. Interesting, so this seems to be dulling it a bit. So that's okay, it actually is helpful that it's having an effect. Just helps us get like a good uniform look. That's the other thing, is after we fire it, we can do a little bit of light sanding with or you know, get a really fine grit sandpaper and polish it up a bit too. Multiple approaches, multiple materials, multiple processes will get us to where we want to be. You know, one thing I wanted to do was under the rib cage, I kind of want to smooth it. Because this area is actually pretty dull if you look, so we want to get it smoothed out a little better. I wonder why it's so, like, white looking. I think maybe I just ripped away the material too much and it just hasn't formed well. I don't know. Well, gotta fix it now. Should at least get it going. Alright, now where's my Q-tip? Maybe a little bit of this. That is a toothbrush in the background, sir. You are correct. It is actually a bit of a scorched toothbrush because it got a little too close to the heat gun when we were doing the Necronomicon sculpt, which was totally my fault. It's kind of funny if you think at the moment we're actually working very anti-texture. This is removing texture. But this is actually a bit of a new experience too. This is the first time I've really used rubbing alcohol in Super Sculpey to extensively smooth. I haven't really done a lot of like smooth Sculpey projects, so this is interesting. Hey man. Doesn't matter what console you're on. Doesn't matter if you're PC or console. If you're playing games and having fun, who the hell cares? I mean, if you're happy with a ball in a cup and you're actually enjoying yourself, and if you have a beast mode PC but you're pissed off, like who's really better off? Well, console versus PC is always interesting, because I will say I bought a 360 so I could play Borderlands and Skyrim. It was sort of actually a cheap solution to get more gaming power in the house. But then with all the mods that Skyrim released, I got really bummed that I missed out on all those Skyrim mods, and you can't do that with console titles. And there's certainly a lot to be said for modding, and most of the Minecraft stuff I play is modded. I play with add-ons for World of Warcraft. It's a feature they don't have, and I'm sure someday that'll change. Consoles are good bang for the buck, good leveling the consistent standard hardware that everybody can play, easy built-in connectivity. PCing is good for like hobbyists. It's kind of like if you think of like a car, like a PC can be a little more towards the guy who builds the awesome Camaro in his garage. Yeah, it can potentially sound better and it can potentially go faster than if you just go buy a new Camaro off the lot. But it's going to take that specific and tinkering. So when I just want to sit on the couch and chill out, I'll grab an Xbox game, because it's kind of well suited for that. But if I want to do something more on the complicated side or play with mods, I'll grab a PC. A lot of the guys at the office, Inside Gaming, all those guys stuff too, man, they have both. They have PCs, they have Xboxes, they have PlayStation, PS4s. I mean, they do everything and play everything, because if you're really a gamer, you have everything, and you're not a big baby about it. Yeah, I mean, they're different. That's all. It's just different things, different strokes for different blokes. Which mod packs? I use the Feed the Beast packs, and I've been playing Direwolf lately. Direwolf's always been my kind of favorite go-to. I tried some of the Crash Landing stuff for a bit too, and that was tons of fun, if not ridiculously hard. I'm looking forward to more of the HQM based packs from Mod Jam that they're coming out with. Haven't done any Mad Pack stuff. You know, it's funny, I love if people get into the sort of like gaming debate and that sort of thing, because I actually spent over a decade of my life making video games. So it's like, oh yeah, tell me about video games. Tell me how you like sitting and playing them. Trying to get a feel for how and when the smoothing should be used. And how strong it is. Because yeah, push hard enough it's going to move clay, sure. But I'm really curious like what level it's really filling in. It's kind of actually taking the shine off. It's depositing it back down in a bit of a dull luster, which is actually helpful too. It's just homogenizing it. Hey, lights out, welcome. You know, getting into gaming, you just have to decide what you want to do in gaming, you know? I think a lot of people get into that spot with a lot of things that they do. You know, if you're like, I want to be in movies, it's like, well, what do you want to be in movies? Do you want to be a camera operator? Do you want to be, you know, an audio technician? Do you want to be a grip? Do you want to be a director? Do you want to be an actor? Do you want to be a producer? Like, there's so many different types of jobs and positions. You just got to figure out what you're really good at and what you want to do. You know, if you go into the video game industry and you're really art focused, you can be a texture artist, 3D artist, character modeler, concept artist, level designer, level artist. You know, there's VFX artists, like, you know, you're talking like particles, explosions, and that kind of stuff. Maybe you want to be an animator. You can be a character animator, vehicle animator, cinematic animator. Maybe you just want to do really high-end 3D stuff, and maybe, you know, maybe you software engineer. Maybe you like doing AI systems. Maybe you like doing scripting. Maybe, you know, to get into games, it's a broad field to get into, and there's plenty of options once you're there. So being involved in video games is fun. I mean, there's a level to it. It is a lot of work, a lot of very stressful, intense work, because you're on very long development cycles. You don't, you know, it's not like you punch in 9 to 5, you do your job for the day and you go home. You have milestones and deliverables that need to be done. You're working towards a single goal that takes months to get to at a time, so that if you are behind, you may have days, weeks, or months worth of work that's piled up to make up you know? And that when a project's done, you know, you may be laid off and have to find and move on to the next thing. So I enjoyed it, but it is certainly, I think, a little different than what a lot of people expect. You know, beta testing is interesting. I know people feel like, hey, I love playing video games, therefore I want to make video games as a job. And I would actually say that you have to be very careful with that, because playing video games and making video games are very different. Watching a movie and making a movie are very different. If you like playing video games, I would suggest not getting a job in video games and actually just playing video games for fun. Beta testing is really good if you like to find problems. If you're the kind of person that's a bit of a pain in the ass to argue with because you pick apart every little thing that everybody says and find the little faults and pieces and logical fallacies, then being a beta tester might be a good job for you, because that's what it is. It's picking apart games. You're not playing a game to play through the level. You're, you know, running your character into a corner for 3 hours to see if you can break through the mesh or reproduce a very specific bug that may require 16 steps to get there. That's more of what being a beta tester is like. I mean, the long and short of it is any job you get is going to be a job. There's going to be work. There's going to be that side of it. So really you want to see how the rest of that fits into your big picture. I would, you know, if you love playing video games, then getting a job playing video games all day is a really quick way to make video game playing not fun for you anymore. Unless that's in line with those specifics that we talked about. Hold on a sec, I'll be right back. All right. So I come back and people are talking about being forced into murder. that what I'm reading? Somebody's got to shoot somebody in the face? Thanks, Brandon. I appreciate it. You just happen to ask about a very specific area of experience that I have. I would say in general, if you don't know where to go with gaming stuff and you're legitimately wide open, you really are passionate about creating games, I would highly, highly, highly recommend going as a software engineer and becoming a programmer. They're broadly useful for more than just what they do. You can actually take programming and software to multiple places, so you're a little more solid of the type of work. And then also, you are much more likely to be able to literally create your own game, because you can create a game with really crappy art assets and good programming, but not the other way around. Ooh, why are you coming off? So, I mean, the game industry's actually changed quite a bit even since I've been out of it. Like, the sort of 2007 was a real big change with the economy kind of taking a dump